Have you noticed that on some days you wake up feeling that something has shifted? Even though nothing has changed outside, you do the same things, open the same conversations, enter the same environments, and still there is a quiet sensation that something inside you no longer fits. This usually appears in simple moments, a normal conversation that suddenly feels too long, a place where nothing is wrong, yet everything feels heavy, or that instant when you realize you are present but no longer available. In the same way, we are the Pleiadians. We observe the human emotional field and sustain clarity during periods when the old begins to lose coherence. What you are feeling is not confusion, it is realignment. The 2026 shift, as you call it, is not a single event waiting in the future. It is already reorganizing the way you perceive, the way you choose, the way you sustain your energy. And here is the point that changes everything. This shift does not begin outside. It begins in your inner posture. You are living a time when sensitivity is no longer a burden. It becomes an instrument of discernment, and discernment no longer asks for permission. Today, we will speak about 3 attitudes, not behaviors, not techniques. Behaviors respond to the external world. Attitudes are states you sustain even when no one is watching. And this is where alignment quietly begins, because before any visible change, there is always a silent moment when you recognize something simple and decisive. There are things you are still sustaining purely out of habit, even though you can feel they no longer make sense. And when this awareness arises, the question is no longer, what should I do? The question becomes whether you will negotiate this clarity or sustain it. And from this point forward, the first attitude becomes inevitable. When clarity appears, the body relaxes and the mind immediately tries to bargain, tells you maybe it's not the right moment, maybe you're overreacting, maybe you should wait a little longer. This is exactly where the first attitude reveals itself. Do not negotiate your clarity. Clarity is not having all the answers. Clarity is recognizing without inner debate when something has lost coherence, even if it still functions. In the outer world, many continue in roles, conversations, and relationships because they still work, but functioning is not the same as being aligned. We observe that in this period, every time you override your clarity, something in you contracts, not dramatically, subtly, and that subtle contraction accumulates. You begin to explain too much, to justify what was already felt, to maintain external harmony, while your inner field is asking for adjustment. The shift does not respond to effort. It responds to sustained coherence. And this is why you will mark this now. Go to the comments and write exactly, I do not negotiate my clarity. Write it, because the mind forgets what the field already knows. Write it, because once it is stated, it becomes a line you do not cross again. This single sentence reduces inner noise, ends the quiet self-betrayal, and stabilizes your presence. In the middle of pressure, you are not writing to impress anyone. You are writing to anchor yourself. And when you stop negotiating with yourself, 3 things happen. Without force, inner noise decreases. The environment reorganizes. Those who fed on your confusion lose access to your field. This is not confrontation. It is silent alignment. And when clarity stabilizes, something natural occurs. You no longer feel the need to fill space with words. Silence begins to arise, not as defense, but as consequence. And from that silence, the second attitude starts to form. When words fall away, silence does not arrive empty. It arrives full of perception, full of signal, full of information that no longer needs translation. Most humans were trained to fear silence. They learned that silence means distance, rejection, loss of control. But silence is not withdrawal. Silence is self-containment. It is what happens when clarity no longer seeks permission to exist. In this phase of the shift, silence becomes unavoidable, not because you are hiding, but because you no longer feel the impulse to explain yourself to fields that cannot receive you. We observe this clearly. Those who sustain silence without fear begin to reorganize the emotional space around them. People speak differently. Situations resolve themselves without confrontation. Energy stops leaking, not because you imposed boundaries, but because your field stopped negotiating presence. Silence reveals who depends on noise to remain comfortable, and it also reveals who is able to meet you in stillness. This is why sustaining silence requires maturity, not emotional distance, not coldness, maturity, because silence will test you. It will test whether you still need to be understood, whether you still need agreement, whether you still need to be validated by those who cannot see you. And when you do not fill that silence with words, something subtle happens. Your nervous system settles, your perception sharpens, your energy returns to center. You stop leaking yourself into explanations. You stop chasing resolution. You begin to hold. And when you hold, the field around you either adjusts or falls away. This is not loss. This is selection. And from this sustained silence, a deeper realization begins to surface. There are connections you are still trying to carry that were never meant to be carried by you. And this realization naturally leads to the third attitude. When silence is sustained, another truth becomes impossible to ignore. There are bonds you have been carrying that were never meant to be carried by you, not because you are weak, but because you are sensitive. And sensitivity, when untrained, often turns into responsibility for what is not yours. Many of you learned early that love meant explaining, that care meant staying, that empathy meant enduring. But empathy without limits becomes self-erasure, and the shift no longer supports that pattern. We observe that one of the most difficult releases for this phase is letting go of the need to save others, not abandoning them, not rejecting them, simply returning to them what belongs to them. Growth requires friction, and some souls still need friction to recognize themselves. When you intervene too early, when you soften what must be felt, you delay their awakening and drain your own field. This is not compassion. This is interference. And this is why this attitude matters so deeply now. You are not here to rescue everyone. You are here to remain coherent. And when you remain coherent, those who are ready will adjust. Those who are not will create distance without drama. This is where we ask you to mark a line for yourself. Go to the comments and write exactly, "I return to others what is theirs." Write this because carrying emotional weight that does not belong to you keeps your field fragmented. Write this because when responsibility is returned, your energy stops leaking into silent exhaustion. This single statement restores boundaries without confrontation. It protects your nervous system, preserves your clarity, it frees energy for what is actually aligned. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming precise, and precision is what allows the field to reorganize without collapse. As this attitude settles, something integrates quietly. You begin to see that clarity, silence, and limits are not separate actions. They are one posture, and that posture is what prepares the ground for the final integration. When these three attitudes settle, something subtle becomes clear. They are not separate choices. They are a single posture, expressed in different moments. Clarity removes inner distortion. Silence prevents unnecessary leakage. Limits protect what has stabilized. Together, they reorganize your field. Without effort, you are no longer reacting. You are no longer adjusting yourself to remain acceptable. You are simply present, without apology. We observe that at this stage, many of you believe you are losing connections, but you are not losing anything. What is dissolving are attachments that depended on confusion, explanation, or emotional overextension. To survive, when clarity is sustained, you stop entering what already feels misaligned. When silence is held, you stop feeding dynamics that rely on noise. When responsibility is returned, you stop carrying what was never yours. This is not withdrawal. This is recentering. And from this center, the nervous system relaxes. The emotional field stabilizes. The need to control outcomes falls away. You begin to notice that life responds differently. Situations resolve. Without confrontation, distance forms. Without hostility, respect appears. Without demand, this is how alignment works. Not through force, not through effort, but through the quiet consistency of a posture that no longer bends to preserve the old. This is why the 2026 shift feels invisible to some and unavoidable to others. Those who are still negotiating do not feel it. Those who have stabilized cannot unfeel it. And as this integration deepens, one final movement remains, not a new attitude, but a decision to remain. Remaining is the final movement, not pushing forward, not correcting the past, not seeking reassurance. Remaining when the environment tests you. Remaining when silence feels threatening to others. Remaining when old dynamics return, disguised as concern, nostalgia, or unfinished business. We observe that this is where many realignments dissolve, not because clarity was lost, but because it was not held. Under emotional pressure, the field will test what has stabilized. It will offer explanation as comfort. It will offer familiarity as safety. It will offer one final chance to shrink yourself for the sake of peace. And this is why anchoring matters now, not as belief, not as affirmation, as posture. A posture that does not argue, a posture that does not defend, a posture that does not retreat. This is the moment to mark that posture Clearly and deliberately, go to the comments and write exactly, I sustain my alignment. Write this, because alignment weakens when it remains unclaimed. Write this, because naming your position reduces the impulse to negotiate yourself. When emotion rises, this single sentence does not create alignment, protects it. It stabilizes your nervous system when pressure appears. It reduces inner noise when external voices grow louder. It reminds you that you no longer need to convince anyone to stand where you stand. You are not declaring this to the world. You are declaring it to your own field. And once alignment is sustained, something irreversible occurs. You stop preparing explanations. You stop rehearsing justifications. You stop anticipating reactions. You move differently. You listen differently. You choose differently, not with force, with certainty. This is why the 2026 shift does not announce itself through chaos or spectacle. It becomes visible through those who no longer bend to preserve what is already collapsing. We are the Pleiadians. We do not command. We do not persuade. We stabilize, remain, observe. What is false cannot follow you into coherence.